If you're 60 or older and you pick the wrong age to claim Social Security, you don't get a do-over. That's not me trying to scare you. That's just the cold reality of how this system works. The age you claim is permanent. You cannot call Social Security 6 months later and say, hey, I changed my mind. Can we go back and try that again? Once you pull that trigger, that number follows you for the rest of your life. Today we're talking about 3 numbers, 62, 67, 70. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which number belongs to your actual life, not your neighbor's life, not some TV financial guru's theoretical spreadsheet, yours. We're doing real math today, real budgets, real numbers, and we're going to show you what these checks look like when you're living inside the United States versus what happens when you're willing to think a little bigger than your current zip code. No fluff. Let's go. Mistake number 1. I'll claim at 62 and finally breathe. This is the most human mistake of all 3, and I say that with complete sincerity because I understand exactly why people make it. You're 62 years old. Your back hurts. Your knees hurt. Your patience with alarm clocks and managers and commutes and office politics has been completely, thoroughly, permanently destroyed. You've been working since you were maybe 16, 17 years old. You've been paying into Social Security your entire adult life. And then someone finally taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, you can start collecting now. You've earned this. And something inside you just exhales. Yes, I have earned this. I want to stop. I want to breathe. I want my life back. I'm not here to judge that feeling. That feeling is completely valid and deeply human. But what I'm going to do is show you exactly what claiming at 62 does to your money. Because the emotions are real, but the math doesn't care about your emotions, not even slightly. Here's our example. Let's say your full retirement age benefit, what Social Security would pay you if you waited until age 67, is $2,000 a month. That's your earned baseline. That's what your decades of work history have built up for you. Now, if you decide to claim at 62 instead of waiting until 67, Social Security doesn't give you a slightly trimmed down version of that check. They reduce it by approximately 30%. 30%. Permanent. Gone before you ever see a single dollar of it. So instead of $2,000 a month, you are now collecting $1,400 a month. Every month. For the rest of your life. Now I already know what some of you are thinking right now. You're sitting there thinking, okay, but I'm getting it 5 years earlier, so doesn't it balance out over time? And honestly, that is a smart and fair question. So let's actually run those lifetime numbers because this is where things get really eye-opening. If you claim at 62 and you live to age 90, that's 28 years of collecting. At $1,400 a month, your total lifetime Social Security payout comes to roughly $470,000. If you wait until 67 and live to age 90, that's 23 years of collecting. At $2,000 a month, your total lifetime payout is about $552,000. That's a difference of over $81,000. $81,000 just for waiting 5 years. And if you delay all the way to 70, we're going to get there in a few minutes and the gap gets even wider. But let's set the lifetime totals aside for a moment and talk about what $1,400 a month actually looks like when it has to fund your real daily life. Because this is where the picture stops being abstract and starts being genuinely uncomfortable. You're 62, you are not yet eligible for Medicare. That doesn't begin until age 65. So for 3 full years, you need to cover your own health insurance completely out of pocket. And this is the part most people don't think about until they're already in it. You're 62, which means insurers consider you higher risk, and the premiums reflect that. Depending on your state, your income, and what subsidies you qualify for, decent health coverage can easily run you $400, $500, even $600 a month. And I want to be real with you. A lot of people in this gap end up either going without coverage entirely, which is a disaster waiting to happen, or they piece together something inadequate that leaves them exposed the moment something actually goes wrong. If you are in that 3-year window before Medicare kicks in, or if you're seriously considering a broad option we're going to talk about later in this video, I've left a link in the description to the travel and health coverage I actually recommend for people in exactly this situation. It's not a perfect substitute for full insurance, but it is a genuine safety net that costs a fraction of what traditional coverage runs. And for a lot of people in this gap, it's the most practical option available. Okay, back to the budget. So right away, all before rent, before food, before a single light switch gets flipped on in your apartment, let's say $450 disappears into health coverage. You now have $950 left. Now let's talk rent. And we're not talking New York City. We're not talking Los Angeles or Miami or Chicago. We're talking somewhere genuinely affordable. A mid-sized city in the South or the Midwest, somewhere people actually point to when they say, well, just move somewhere cheap. A modest one-bedroom apartment in those areas is going to cost you at minimum $800 to $950 a month right now. Some places more, so $950 minus $850 for rent. You have about $100 left, $100 for groceries, for utilities, for your phone bill, for prescriptions, for transportation to get to those doctor's appointments that are happening more frequently now because you're 62. For anything that makes your life feel like an actual human life, and not just a slow countdown. That's not breathing, that's not the relief you imagined, that's survival mode with a very thin margin before everything collapses. And here's what makes it truly fragile. There is no buffer. One car repair, one unexpected medical bill, one rent increase when your lease renews, any single one of those things and you are instantly in debt with no way to recover because next month looks exactly the same. Now here's a thought I want to plant in your head right now. And we're going to come back to this and fully unpack it later in this video. What if $1,400 a month didn't have to mean that kind of life? What if that exact same Social Security check or same deposit, same amount, straight from the US government, landed in a place where a nice apartment costs $300 to $400 a month, where good fresh food was a fraction of what it costs here, where healthcare was affordable and accessible without bleeding you dry, same check. Completely different life. We're going to talk about that. But first, let's look at the second mistake, because the people making this next one actually think they're being responsible. They think they've figured it out. And in some ways, that makes this mistake even more dangerous. Mistake number 2. Full retirement age means I'm safe. So now we're talking about the person who did their homework. They heard about claiming at 62. Maybe they even watched a video like this one, they ran some numbers, they got a little scared, and they made a decision. Okay, I'll be patient. I'll do the smart thing. I'll wait until my full retirement age. I'll wait until 67. That's what the system was designed around. That has to be the responsible move. And compared to claiming at 62, yes, mathematically, 67 is better. Full stop. You get $2,000 a month instead of $1,400. That 30% increase is real money every single month for the rest of your life. Over 10 years, that's an extra $72,000 compared to the early claimer. Nobody should argue with that improvement. But here's the trap, and it's a sneaky one because it hides behind the word full. People hear full retirement age, and their brain translates that into enough. Like the government drew that line at 67 because that's the point where the check is sufficient. Where the math works, where you can finally relax. It doesn't mean that at all. Let's look at what $2,000 a month actually has to cover in a real American retirement budget. First thing that comes out, and it comes out automatically before you ever see your deposit, is your Medicare Part B premium. Right now, that runs most retirees around $175 a month, deducted directly from your Social Security payment. So your real starting point isn't $2,000, it's $1,825. Now, rent. Same exercise as before. We're looking at genuinely affordable American cities. Not the coasts, not the expensive metros, places people actually retire to when they are trying to be smart about money. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Knoxville, Tennessee. A decent one-bedroom apartment in those cities right now is going to run you somewhere between $900 and $1,100 a month. Let's use $950. You're now at $875 remaining. Groceries for one person, the USDA's Thrifty Food Plan for a senior comes in around $250 to $300 a month. Let's be generous and say $250. You're at $625. Utilities, electricity, water, internet, because you need internet to stay connected to family and manage your finances and watch this channel. Call that $150 to $180 a month. You're at roughly $445 to $475. And we have not touched transportation, we have not touched prescriptions, and the average Medicare beneficiary takes 4 to 5 prescription medications. We have not touched dental care, which Medicare barely covers and which gets more expensive and more necessary as you age. We have not touched clothing. We have not touched a haircut. We have not touched a birthday gift for a grandchild or a dinner out or any single thing that makes retirement feel like something you actually earned rather than something you're just enduring. And just like with the $1,400 scenario, there is no cushion. The margin is razor thin. And one event, just one, flips this from uncomfortable to catastrophic. Here's how I think about this. Imagine a map of the United States, and every location gets color-coded based on whether a $2,000 Social Security check can realistically support a stable retirement. Green means you're okay. Amber means you're surviving but fragile. Red means you're already in a deficit before anything goes wrong. That map is mostly amber and red. There are small pockets of green, some genuinely rural areas with very low costs, but the vast majority of American cities and towns, even the ones people hold up as affordable retirement destinations, show up as fragile. One medical event, one landlord raising your rent by $150, one anything, and you're in trouble. Now, here's the important part. The fix for 67 isn't to give up on it. The fix is to stop treating the check like the whole plan and start thinking about where that check has to live. Because $2,000 a month in Tulsa is a tightrope walk. But $2,000 a month somewhere with a dramatically lower cost of living, whether that's a small rural American town or a well-chosen location abroad, can actually feel like a retirement. Not surviving. Actually living. This is what I mean when I talk about hard mode versus easy mode. We're going to build that out completely in a few minutes with real side-by-side numbers. Before we get there, we need to talk about the third mistake. Because some of you watching this right now are thinking, forget 62, forget 67, I'm just going to grind it out until 70, get the maximum check. Then I'll actually be safe. Let's look at that plan honestly. Mistake number 3. I'll work until 70 and get the maximum check. This is the discipline move. This is the person who has done the most research, read the most articles, maybe sat down with a financial planner, and arrived at a conclusion that feels airtight. Every year you delay Social Security past your full retirement age, your benefit grows by 8%. So if I can just hold on until 70, I walk away with the biggest possible check. Then I'm finally, truly set. And the math on that? It's real. It's not wrong. Let's run the numbers. If your full retirement age benefit is $2,000 at 67 and you delay all the way to 70, your monthly benefit grows to approximately $2,480. That's about 24% more than you'd get at 67. That extra $480 a month is not trivial. Over 1 year, that's an additional $5,760. Over 10 years, that's $57,600 more in your pocket than if you had claimed at 67. That's a genuinely meaningful number. I'm not dismissing it. But here's what most people skip when they're doing this math. There's a break-even calculation that completely changes how you should think about this strategy. When you delay from 67 to 70, you are giving up 3 full years of $2,000 monthly checks to eventually receive the higher amount. Those 3 years of payments you skipped add up to $72,000. That's $72,000 you voluntarily walked away from while you kept working. So the question becomes, how long do you have to live after 70 to actually recoup that $72,000 through the higher monthly payments? When you do that math, the break-even point lands at around age 80 to 81. That means the wait until 70 strategy only beats the claim at 67 strategy if you live past 80. If you live to 78 or 79, you actually collected less total Social Security by waiting. The bigger check worked against you because you didn't live long enough to cash in on it. Now, a lot of people respond to that by saying, I'm healthy, I work out, parents lived into their late 80s, I'm not worried about that. And that's great. I genuinely hope that's true for every single person watching this. But here's the problem that goes way beyond health. We're not just talking about whether you'll be alive at 80. We're talking about whether you can realistically execute this plan in your 60s. And the data on that is really sobering. Studies consistently show that roughly 56% of workers, and more than half, are forced into retirement earlier than they planned. Not because they wanted to stop, because life happened. A layoff at 64 that they couldn't recover from, because companies quietly, systematically push older workers out. A health diagnosis at 66 that ended their ability to work before they ever reached 70. A spouse who got sick and needed full-time care. A job that was eliminated and couldn't be replaced at their age and experience level. We are genuinely terrible at predicting how our 60s are going to unfold. We plan for our best case version of 68. Still employed, still healthy, still capable of performing at full capacity. But what actually happens to a lot of people is a very different story. And here's what makes this particularly dangerous. If you build your entire retirement plan around claiming at 70, and then at 67 you get laid off or get a diagnosis that prevents you from working, you now have a gap. A financial gap between when your income stopped and when your Social Security was supposed to start. With no savings buffer, that gap can do serious damage in a very short amount of time. Emergency fund depleted, credit card debt building, retirement accounts getting raided early, all of it undoing years of careful planning in a matter of months. So when does waiting until 70 actually make sense? When does this strategy hold up? It makes sense if you genuinely are in excellent health with a realistic family history of longevity. It makes sense if you have a stable job situation, not just currently stable, but the kind of stable where forced retirement at 66 would truly be a shock rather than a quiet statistical possibility. It makes sense if you have enough savings to bridge the gap in a worst-case scenario where the plan doesn't go perfectly, and it absolutely requires having a real backup plan for what you do if you get forced out before you hit 70. If you have all of those things lined up, great. The math works in your favor if you make it to the break-even age. If even one of those pieces is shaky, the grind until 70 plan is less of a strategy and more of a hope. Hope is not a retirement plan. Okay, we've now walked through all three mistakes. We've seen what claiming at 62 actually looks like in a real American budget. We've seen why 67 isn't as safe as the name implies, and we've seen why waiting until 70 is harder to execute than most people think. Now, it's time to put all three of these checks side by side, in a real budget, in a real location, and show you exactly what I mean by hard mode and easy mode. Hard mode versus easy mode. The side-by-side reality. Let's make this concrete. We're going to look at three retirement budgets side by side, one for each claiming age, and we're going to set them all in what most people would consider an affordable American city, not a cheap shot location, a genuinely reasonable mid-tier American retirement destination, somewhere in the range of Chattanooga, Tennessee, or Tucson, Arizona, or Fayetteville, Arkansas. Places that regularly show up on best affordable places to retire lists. This is about as good as it gets in the US without moving to a genuinely rural area with limited services. Let's start with the person who claimed at 62. They're bringing in $1,400 a month. Before Medicare kicks in at 65, health insurance alone is eating $450 of that. Rent for a modest one-bedroom, $850. Groceries, $260. Utilities, $160. That's already $1,720. They're $320 in the red before they've paid for a phone, a prescription, transportation, or anything else. This budget doesn't work. It doesn't work on paper, and it doesn't work in real life. Every month is a small emergency. Now the person who waited until 67, they've got $2,000 coming in. Medicare Part B pulls out $175 automatically. Real check, $1,825. Rent, $950. Groceries, $260. Utilities, $160. That's $1,545 in fixed costs. You've got $280 left for everything. Prescriptions, transportation, dental, any form of social life or personal spending. It's not in the red, but it's one bad month away from being in the red. One rent increase of $150, one car repair, one dental crown, gone. Now, the person who waited until 70, check is $2,480. Medicare pulls $175. Real check, $2,305. Rent, $950. Groceries, $260. Utilities, $160. Fixed costs, $1,545. You have $760 left over. This is the first budget where you actually have some breathing room. You can cover prescriptions. You can handle a small, unexpected expense without going into debt. You might even be able to do something that feels like actually living. A dinner out, a weekend trip to see family, something. But even here, one significant medical event, one landlord deciding to raise rent by $200, one real emergency, and that $760 margin evaporates fast. There's no cushion that absorbs a serious hit. And remember, to even get this budget, you had to successfully work until 70, which, as we just talked about, more than half of people cannot do. Every single one of these paths is fragile in the United States, even the best one. That's hard mode. You're grinding, you're budgeting, you're doing everything right, and you are still one event away from financial stress. Now let's flip it. Let's talk about easy mode. Easy mode is not a magic trick. It's not complicated. It's one simple shift in thinking. What if the same Social Security check went somewhere where the cost of living was dramatically, fundamentally lower? We're not talking about specific countries right now. I have a whole separate video on that, and I'll link it at the end. What we're talking about right now is the concept, the principle. There are places in this world, real places where real American retirees are living right now, where a clean, comfortable one-bedroom or even a two-bedroom apartment costs $300 to $500 a month, where fresh groceries for the week cost a fraction of what they cost at an American supermarket, where quality healthcare is accessible and affordable without Medicare being your only lifeline, where the climate is warm, the communities are welcoming, and the pace of life actually matches what retirement is supposed to feel like. In those locations, drop in the $1,400 check that the 62-year-old is collecting. The check that couldn't even cover rent and health insurance in Tennessee. Suddenly that $1,400 covers a comfortable apartment, good food, utilities, and leaves several $100s of breathing room every single month. Not surviving. Actually living. Drop in the $2,000 check. Now you have genuine comfort, you have margin, you have the ability to travel occasionally, to enjoy your life, to stop counting every dollar before you spend it. In the $2,480 check from the person who waited until 70. In a low cost of living location, that is a genuinely comfortable middle-class retirement, not wealthy, not lavish, but stable, enjoyable, and completely sustainable. Same Social Security, same US government deposit every month, just a different geography making that deposit worth 2 or 3 times as much in real daily life. That's the entire point of easy mode. You are not changing your income. You are changing the purchasing power of your income by being intentional about where that income has to operate. Hard mode is staying in the US and hoping your budget survives the next rent increase. Easy mode is picking a geography where your check is actually enough to live well. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I get it. How do I actually decide what to do? How do I figure out which claiming age is right for me specifically, given my health, my savings, my situation? That's what we're going to nail down right now. How to actually choose your retirement age. Here's the framework. 3 questions. Answer them honestly, and they will point you toward the right decision. Question 1. What is your honest health and job reality? Not your optimistic version. Not the version where everything goes according to plan. Honest assessment. Can you realistically work until 67? Job the kind of job that tends to keep older workers? Your body holding up well enough that another 5 years of work is genuinely feasible? Or is the truth that you're already running on fumes, your industry quietly pushes people out in their mid-60s, and getting to 70, employed and healthy, would require everything to go perfectly? Be brutally honest with yourself here, because your answer to this question changes everything downstream. Question 2. What is your actual debt and savings situation? If you have meaningful savings, even $150,000 to $200,000 in a retirement account, you have options. You can potentially live off a portion of your savings while you delay claiming, letting your Social Security benefit grow. That's a legitimate strategy, and it can work very well, If you have very little saved, the calculation is completely different. With no buffer, no savings to bridge gaps, delaying might not be financially possible even if your health is good. You may need that income to start sooner simply to stay afloat. Zero savings means you are playing by a different set of rules than someone with a cushion. Acknowledge that and plan accordingly. Question 3, where are you willing to live? This is the question most retirement planning videos never ask, and it might be the most important one of the three. Because your geography decision isn't just about lifestyle preference, it directly determines whether any of these Social Security amounts actually work. If you are staying in the United States, you need to be in a genuinely low-cost area, and you need to accept that your margin is going to be tight regardless of when you claim. You're in hard mode, and you need a plan that accounts for that fragility. If you are open to living abroad, even part-time, even just for a few years, your entire financial picture changes. The same check that barely survived in Tennessee is suddenly thriving in a low-cost international location. That is not an exaggeration, that is just math applied to geography. Now let me give you 3 real profiles so you can see yourself in one of these. Profile 1, the forced early claimer. You're in your early 60s, your health is struggling, or your job situation is genuinely unstable. You don't have significant savings. Waiting until 67 or 70 is not really a realistic option, not because you don't want to, but because life isn't cooperating. If this is you, claiming at 62 or 63 is not a moral failure, it's a reality. But, and this is critical, staying in a high-cost US location on that check is going to be incredibly painful. This profile almost demands a geography reset, whether that means a genuinely or a pretty rural American location or a lower-cost country abroad. Your financial survival depends on making your check worth more by changing where it lives. Profile 2, middle ground waiter. You are in reasonable health, your job is stable enough, you have some savings, maybe $50,000 to $150,000. Not a lot, but enough to create a small cushion. You can realistically get to 67 with some discipline and maybe some part-time income to bridge the last year or two. If this is you, 67 is your target. Pair it with a serious geography conversation. Are you in a hard mode location that's going to eat your entire budget? Or can you make a move, signed it even just to a cheaper US city or a lower cost of living country that turns your $2,000 from a survival check into a livable income? Profile 3, the strategic delayer. You're in genuinely good health. Your employment situation is stable and senior worker friendly. You have solid savings, $250,000 or more, that can support you while you wait. Your family history suggests longevity. A real backup plan if things don't go perfectly. If this is you, seriously consider 70. Math favors you if you hit the break-even age, which given your health profile is realistic. But still, don't ignore geography. Even with the biggest check, being strategic about where you retire can dramatically improve your quality of life. Questions. Profiles. Honest answers to those questions point you to your number. Pick a retirement age because a TV guru said so. Don't pick it because your neighbor did it, or because it feels like the normal thing, or because you heard somewhere. One option is always better than the others. Match your age to your reality, your health, your savings, your job situation, and match it to your geography, because where you retire determines whether any of these checks actually work. If you watch this video and realize that the US might be hard mode for your specific Social Security number, go watch my video on the 10 cheapest countries to retire next, because the same check that's barely keeping you afloat here might be the foundation of a genuinely good life somewhere else. That video is right there. I'll see you in it.